I was like, I moved up here because I thought that.
Girl, you know every place you move to got a little demon somewhere. You know?
Like, what is this? But then I'm like, I'm with the white people, so maybe it won't be that bad.
Nah, they the ones. You be watching true crime, you know.
I
Girl,
know.
yeah. Look, see, the thing is, they be trying to do their stuff on the sneak tip and they get caught later. That's what they be. See, we just act on emotions and just do it whenever, wherever. That's some of us, not all of us, but that's the difference. Speaking of doing stuff in secret, hey, Janae.
Hey.
Ma'am, let me tell you something. This movie, you got one out of me, girlfriend, because remember I told you I didn't know if I was going to like this one because I don't like
you liked it?
I liked it. I liked it. What's up, survivors? Welcome to D180, a horror podcast where we walk you through all of these rides that are these horror movies. I'm AJ. I'm with Janae.
Hey, y'all.
And today we're going to be talking about, well, as a part of our Bye-Bye 2020 theme, we're going to be talking about 2020 Spell. Now, as I was just saying, I didn't know if I was going to like this movie. This is Janae's pick, so she'll be hosting the show today. But I'll start by saying I'm the type that when people hype something up, especially when it comes to horror movies, because, you know, a lot of people just say something is scary and it's something just filled with jump scares. You guys know how I am with that. I didn't know if I was going to like it. When I seen that Omari Hardwick was in it, I definitely didn't know if I was going to like it. I don't watch Power. We all know him from Power. But I just wasn't sure. But I really liked it. I'm excited to talk about this one. Janae, how did you find this movie?
So as you know, this past summer, we all in the house, bored in the house, and I'm in the house bored.
Right.
And I saw the trailer. Now, this is the first, like, out of all the movies that we've watched, I never watched the trailer before I watched the movie.
Right.
But because, you know, first of all, I didn't even think that we were going to cover this movie.
Really?
So, yeah, I didn't think
Girl, it's so many movies we're going to get into. Thousands. Horror never ends, honey. I'm excited.
And mind you, when I saw this trailer, this is before you even came to me with the idea for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the trailer and I was like, ooh, I want to watch this. And I was really excited. And I think I even texted you the trailer. I think you remember.
Did. And I think that's when I told you, I was like, I don't want to watch it yet because I don't want to yeah, I do remember this. Okay, keep going.
But I have personal reasons as to why I wanted to watch it and it didn't disappoint.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you know what, it's crazy because naturally the whole time I'm like, damn, I see what she was trying to tell me now and I understand. Because at first, well, I mean, okay, we can save it for the discussion. Let's get into some little specs here. You want to tell us about the little background? I'm going to edit this little part of what I'm saying. But you can go ahead and start with like the director.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you know how this go. We just flipping the roles. That's all.
Right. So Spell was directed by Mark Tonderai. It was produced by Kurt Wimmer, Gordon Gray, Morris Chestnut, which kind of surprised me.
And I saw that.
But then, so I watched a couple of reviews about it, and they were trash talking Morris Chestnut and the fact that he produced this movie.
Why?
Because apparently, I can't remember which producer just decides to do a lot of remakes.
But it could be Blumhouse does it, Platinum Dunes, yeah.
But that's what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were, I'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but a lot of people were comparing this movie to another movie, but I'll touch on that.
I think I know what you might be talking about, but yeah, we'll get to it later.
I haven't seen the movie, so I couldn't really.
And I was wondering, had you seen it or not? Okay. No. Okay, because it definitely made me think of a different movie.
It was written by Kurt Wimmer. Mm-hmm. It starred Omari Hardwick and Loretta Devine. I'll get into the cast a little bit later. Music was by Ben Onono. I hope that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Cinematography by Jacques Dufresne. Edited by Sarah C. Reeves, and it was distributed by Paramount Players.
Right.
And of course, it was supposed to have a theatrical release in August. It was distributed by Paramount Players, and of course, you know, the release date was supposed to be in August, but it's Rona, so it released straight to video on October 30th.
Mm-hmm.
the cast.
This is a good cast.
It was
a really good cast.
A really good cast. So Amari Hardwick played Marquis. Loretta Devine played Miss Eloise. John Beasley as Earl. Lorraine Burroughs as Viora Woods. Hannah.
I like that name so much. I don't know what it is. I like names like that. I don't know what like that is, but keep going.
It's basically just different.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Hannah Gonera as Samsara Woods. Samsara was different for me too. I was like, what? Khalifa Burton as Titan Woods. Tumisho Masha as the sheriff, and Steve Mululu as Lewis.
Every time we go through this movie and she called him, I don't know if you've ever seen the Shade Room video, or I don't know if you follow Super Scent. You know Super?
I follow her, but I know about her because of the crayon case.
Do you know? Yes. Every time they said Lewis, I just couldn't stop laughing. I had to press pause, grow up for a second, and watch the rest of the movie, because here you go.
What address you gonna use, Lewis?
Oh, I did see that.
What ID you gonna use, Lewis?
It's better because it's an actual TikTok that gives it a sound, but I can't find that right now. But if you know, you know. So go ahead. I'm so sorry. I really like this movie. I'm enjoying this right now.
Oh my gosh, I remember that clip because she was going off on her baby daddy.
Yes, not playing with him.
But at the same time, I was kind of confused because I'm like, I don't really follow her life for real. And the Shade Room had posted it. So I was like, wow, go off, Super. All right. So behind the scenes information, I didn't really see anything about how the movie was made besides the fact that it was shot in South Africa, which was interesting. But again, I did see a couple of review videos about this movie, and everyone was comparing it to Misery. And, you know, I've never seen Misery, so I couldn't make that comparison.
I do agree with you and all the other reviews. I did watch a few, and Misery was brought up. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's by Stephen King, and it has Kathy Bates and James Caan. And you might know James Caan from Elf. Have you seen Elf?
Yeah.
So he's the dad.
Bought Elf cookies the other day.
Yeah, he's the dad in that movie. But he plays Paul Sheldon in Misery. And I'm not going to spoil it for you because I think you would definitely like that movie when we get to it. So don't go watching the trailers, Johnny. It's 2021. We're going to stop this watching trailers before watching the movie business. Well, I don't know. Well, actually, no.
This one didn't really count.
But that's what I was about to say. Some trailers do a good job and some don't. We just have to tread lightly. This movie for me was kind of like Princess and the Frog, dark. Mama Odie's story. Does that make sense for you?
It does.
What? It did like the whole time. The first, okay. Well, wait. I'll tell you, and I don't want to get into it now. You ready to go to this queue line?
Yes.
All right. Let's hit it.
All right. Before we get into the queue line, about this game.
Okay.
So it's like I have a question, or it's like a this or that, but not really a this or that. It's like, so I did find a game, but the thing about the game is that if you get it wrong,
Howdy, survivors. Please keep your tips and limbs inside the vehicle and remain seated at all times. Hang on to your personal belongings, especially your minds and spines.
Yes.
Okay, so
hold on, pause. This is the first time I'm in a hot seat, and it's kind of intimidating. Is this what you be feeling like?
Yes, it is what I feel like all the time, because I don't know what you're going to ask me. I don't know if it's going to be a quiz. I don't know if it's going to be some crazy ass question that I have to answer.
I'm known for the crazy questions.
But yes, this is what I feel like. Okay. So for those who don't know, this movie is based off of hoodoo. And hoodoo is it's not necessarily a religion.
Right.
It's also not bad. It's a blend of African tradition, Native American medicine, Judeo-Christian rituals, and European magic. It's practiced in the South, and most hoodoo practitioners are Christian. And it's like something that we created to protect ourselves.
Right.
And slay the pretty times.
So this is like where you see like a lot of the root doctors and things like that, right?
Yes. And so root work is another name for hoodoo, but
Mhm.
that's because when you deal with roots, that
Right.
consists of understanding herbalism and incorporating indigenous wisdom regarding nature. And
Right.
like I said, it often has a negative connotation, but it was never derived from an evil place. It was derived as a means to survive.
Mhm.
So, as you know, you just had New Year's, and you probably saw a lot of people on social media talking about their New Year's Eve traditions.
Mhm.
So, the game that I'm going to play with you
Uh-oh.
is family tradition or hoodoo.
Man, look, you know my mom's side is from New Orleans. Don't do that to me because I just, stuff get, and no disrespect to my family, and you know, stuff just get twisted over time. Go ahead, I'm ready. Oh my gosh.
But it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only 5 or 6 things.
Oh, okay.
It's really simple. Okay, so they're gonna be individual. So okay, washing your laundry on New Year's Day.
Hell no.
Why?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I'm not getting washed out this year. Put it this way. Say, check this out, people at home. Say, and I'm going to go a little bit dark, so I'm sorry. Say you wash, your loved one's clothes. Just pick one, whoever pops in your head first. You washing them out of the year. I'm not going to finish the sentence. Yeah, don't do that.
Yep.
I take it as far as not even doing it on New Year's Eve either. I take it that far.
Listen, my neighbors were washing clothes on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and I was looking at the ring because my ring is right outside the door where the laundry room is, and I'm looking at the ring like, y'all are crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
But yes, not only is it a New Year tradition, but it also is a form of hoodoo. So not only will a family member be washed away, but it's also said that you could wash away a year of good fortune down the drain, and also you might have more laundry than usual all year.
Oh, yeah, and who wants that?
Exactly.
I know you've seen that meme that says, in 2021, we folding clothes straight out the dryer. No, y'all not. Stop lying. No, you're
Girl,
not.
so I washed clothes on Christmas Eve. Not Christmas Eve. It was that Saturday after Christmas. When my brothers came here.
Mm-hmm.
I washed the clothes, but let it sit in the hamper till after the New Year.
Girl, I will do that. I'm telling you, I told BJ, I think I seen him. I asked him, I was like, you ain't got no clothes to wash, do you? He was like, yeah, but not right now. I was like, yeah, don't wash them until.
Yeah, I didn't wash it, and I didn't fold it either because I was like, I'm just going to let it sit in the hamper now because I'm not about to fold these clothes.
No.
Same thing with the trash. I made sure I took all the trash out. That wasn't one of the things, though, but I did take it.
Right.
I took all the trash out because you're not supposed to take the trash out on New Year's Eve or day. Yeah. Okay, next one. Make a pan of cornbread.
When? On New Year?
It could be New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
No.
No what?
Is this a trick question? Is this the black eye? Because I'm supposed to eat black eyed peas.
That is one, but that's another tradition.
You is it so nervous. My heart is beating so fast. Girl, you don't understand. My shit in my throat right now. And I don't know why. Why am I so nervous? I feel so bad that I be putting you through this.
Okay. So do you make a pan of making a pan of cornbread on New Year's Eve or day? Is that a tradition or is that hoodoo?
Wow, memory unlocked. It's definitely hoodoo. Because isn't it? Okay, don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me because I could be saying this wrong. Don't laugh. Isn't the top supposed to be golden brown?
Yes.
For money?
Yes.
I don't know. I just had a memory of my grandma making cornbread and I wanted to eat the batter. I don't know what made me think of that. Wow, that's crazy. I got chills. I got goosebumps. Oh, I'm scared.
Don't be scared. That's just your ancestors.
Oh, no. Okay, keep going.
All right. Collard greens on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Is that a tradition or is that hoodoo?
I feel like that's a tradition. I don't know. And then, I'm biased because I don't like collard greens.
It's actually both.
Okay.
Same thing with cornbread. It's both. So boiled greens represents folding money so that you'll have actual cash in your pocket for the whole year.
Dang, really? I never knew that.
Yep.
But you know what I did know about money, and I don't know if this, you can educate me on this. I always keep money in my pocket New Year's Eve, New Year, walking through the door with money in your pocket.
Yes. They say that, and then it's also coins. I forget how many exactly. And then also grapes. I didn't put this on here, but you eat 12 grapes at midnight to signify the 12 months of the year. And it's
Oh,
for
that's
like health and
tight.
prosperity. Yep.
Low-key, I might have done that unintentionally. Just saying. Just saying.
It's a
Safeway
lot
had
of
a
things
sale.
that we do unintentionally.
Yeah. I'm like, Safeway had a sale and they were good. And they were seeded for once.
Ooh.
I know. You never
That's a
see
lot to
seeded
find.
grapes.
Okay, the next one.
Mhm.
You've already said this one, black eyed peas.
I know that's hoodoo.
Yes.
I don't know what it means. I have no idea. I never knew, never questioned it, but I know. I know what it is.
It's for good luck. And so legumes in general have seeds that are considered lucky. So basically all your beans are considered lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hoppin' John. You might not have heard Hoppin' John before.
I have not. I think, like, is it spicy? It sounds like something that's spicy.
It can be, depending on the meat you use. So Hoppin'
The
John.
meat. Wait. Don't say what it is for. Tell me what's in it.
Okay, so Hoppin' John is a mixture of rice, meat, and beans. And the beans is black eyed peas.
So it's a bowl?
Kind of, sort of.
A soul food bowl?
Kind of, sort of.
What type of
Like,
meat?
have you ever seen like Spanish rice and how Spanish rice has like, you know, the
Tomatoes and other
peas and
stuff?
yeah. So it's just white rice or any type of rice, and then it has meat in it. The meat would be like either a sausage or some pork or both, and then black eyed peas.
It almost sounds like a dry gumbo.
Kinda, sorta.
Yeah.
I actually had it last year.
How was it?
New Year's Eve. It was good. I wasn't expecting it. I had to pick all the meat out because the plate was actually made for my boyfriend. His mom, they live in Charleston.
Right.
Now,
Right.
Charleston is like a hoodoo capital. So, but it was good. It was my first time having it. I actually might have her make me some when I go back. Now, do you want to know what it means?
Yes.
Okay, so it actually is a tradition that's rooted in hoodoo, but it also has like Scottish background as well. So it represents the first footing. So there's this tradition where it says that like when you come back in the house on New Year's Day, the man is supposed to enter the house first. And so after midnight, you open every window and door in the house to let out any leftover bad luck. Then a man or a particularly lucky person in the family walks in the house first to set the tone for the year.
Oh, it's not me.
And they generally have like money in their pocket or something like that.
Yeah.
And then once you get in the house, you eat the Hoppin' John with cornbread and honey.
Cornbread and honey?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds fire.
Girl.
That sounds super good.
It is.
I don't even like, and guys, I don't like soul food. Well, I like cornbread and I like macaroni when I can eat it because I'm really not supposed to eat cheese. That's not the point. But that actually sounded kind of fire there.
It is. And then the last one. Every corner of the house has to be clean, getting rid of things that are no longer needed.
Ooh, girl. I know they was looking at me like I was crazy because things was not.
Girl, mine wasn't either. And
I was like, I'm so sorry. And I know better. Like, I know better. I definitely didn't do it.
And I didn't make my dishes either. So I was looking like, I'm sorry. Don't
I'm like,
me.
please,
This is my
just
first
please
New
bear
Year's
with me. It was 2020. I'm like, just bear with me, please.
Tradition or hoodoo?
No, I know it's hoodoo.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. No, I know it's hoodoo. And
yeah.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, they was a little disappointed in me, but basically you have to, out with the old and with the new. You're supposed to get rid of any old clothes, anything with a stench of bad luck, that sort of thing. So, but the funny thing about it is that a lot of people were saying on Facebook that if you did any of these traditions this year, or if you didn't do it, then you better do it this year because y'all are the reasons why 2020 was so bad.
Probably, honestly.
But the funny thing about it is that for the people who I know who individually did it with their families, they were fine. Now, the country as a whole was trash, but individual families, some people were like really flourishing this year.
Right. Yeah. Honestly. Quarantine butterflies.
And that is the game.
What I win? I'm kidding. I know you told me that.
I'm like,
Girl, no. I'm kidding with you.
So you live to see another day?
Girl, first of all, okay, blessed, hashtag. Well, Janae.
Yes?
I am ready to get into this movie because now, although I did tell you I liked it, there were some things I didn't like. You could probably already picture what they were. So, what do you say? You ready?
I'm definitely ready.
All right, guys, let's buckle up because when we come back, we're going to talk about 2020's Spell.
Where I grew up, it's another world from this one.
My father was stuck in time a little bit.
What was he like?
He was religious, just differently, like superstitious.
So what y'all doing around these parts?
We're going up for my daddy's funeral.
They don't get many visitors up in those hollers.
I'm taking it down!
Where am I?
You was in a plane accident.
What about my family?
Baby, you were the only one found.
I need an ambulance.
Ain't a hospital within 50 miles of here. Where you think you is? New York City? Happened to you? I'm gonna fix you. I'm gonna fix you good. Oh, God, should I win? All right now, tell us what you see. You may live in the city, but you from this land. I got big plans for you.
Hey!
This is for your own good.
Okay. So when the movie first opens, the screen is pitch black. Mm-hmm. And what it sounds like is a flashback to the main character's childhood.
Right.
At first, we already know who the main character is, but he hasn't been formally introduced. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a child is playing, but then you hear an angry father in the background, and then you hear sounds of beatings, and instantly I knew that his father tore him up as a child, like just based off of the sound effects alone.
Right.
So then the scene cuts, doesn't really cut. You actually start to see pictures on the screen now. So you see the main character, which we assume is Marquis, which is actually a cute name. At first, I thought they were saying Marquise, and I was so confused because I'm like Marquis, but then it's Marquis, and it's spelled Marquise.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a nickname because when they're in the office, somebody does refer to him by the full Marquise. But I think his nicknames are Mark and Marquis.
Because his name is Marquis T something.
Marquis T Woods. I kept saying that all night yesterday. Hey, Marquis T Woods.
So Marquis getting ready for work, and you see that his wife is locked in a room. Mm-hmm. And he's playing around with her that he's going to leave her in there for hours.
Okay, it's a $15,000 door, $1,500 door.
Right. She's like, bust the door down. And he's like, nah, this was imported. I paid $1,500 for this.
Right.
What are you doing? What are you talking about? I'm going to call the locksmith. And all she just wants for him to bust the door down. So after freaking her out and pretending like he was going to take forever, he just decides to pick the lock. I thought that was kind of cute a little bit, but at the same time, don't do that.
It's cute, but it's also slight foreshadow too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then Marquis goes to work. I didn't really pay attention to, I didn't really find significance in really what he was saying to the boss.
So in this scene, you get him and his boss talking to each other, and basically you're getting a feel for Marquis' character, right? So they have a conversation, and they're talking about, you don't feel bad about executing all these black men. So that's what he was asking him, because all of their lawyers were Caucasian. So he was like, well, that's the ultimate right there. But even though it's at the expense of him putting his own people behind bars. Because, now, wait a minute, time out. Y'all know when we get to the ride, we spoiling it everything. We don't care if it's from jump or not. We assume that you have watched the movie.
So don't come here thinking that you're getting like an innocent review. Like you get.
No, baby. So what I'm finna say right now is probably a spoiler. But anyway, so this scene is supposed to be like a slight foreshadow saying like he be turning on his own people. You know how that go.
Yeah.
But it was just very, very subtle.
Anything for the almighty dollar.
Right.
So after he talks to his boss, he's sitting at his desk and he gets a phone call. This phone call is from his father's lawyer, and he finds out that his father died and he needs to go back to his hometown to handle his affairs.
Right.
So he gets home from work. The scene is his family at the dinner table. This is where you're introduced to his children. I'm really not going to say the children's names throughout the movie. I'm literally just going to say the son and daughter because I cannot remember them.
Yeah, I just wrote Ty and Sam.
Okay.
But I did like his full name, Titan.
Yeah, that was cute.
Mm-hmm.
So at the
but
table,
wait a minute, before we get to them, when the scene first comes and you see their kids, I thought them was grown ass people.
Yeah,
because Marquis and Viora, they look okay. I mean, obviously you can have kids young, duh, but they look like they're probably in their mid-30s.
Well, I didn't think.
And them kids look like
early 20s.
They look grown, but go ahead.
So at the table, Marquis is giving a little background about his father, that he was strict, tough, spiritual, but a different kind of spiritual, and that he didn't really spare the rod. Right. And his wife tells him that, they're all going to go pay their respects, despite Marquis and the children both expressing their opposition. Like, those kids did not want to go. They were cracking so many jokes about them being country in the middle of nowhere, all types of stuff.
So see, this is another example of, how some people try to get away from their childhood and change everything that they have for their kids. And these kids they're out of touch with like society and like what's really going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then another thing I'd like to add is, and you might have said this, it's very strange because Marquis also mentions that he hasn't seen his dad since he ran away from the Appalachia.
I didn't say that, but that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it just shows you like it makes you, I say that to say it makes you kind of like wonder like what happened? Okay, like obviously it's a funeral being set up. He ain't been there since he was 15. Like what's really going on here?
A mess. So we cut to the family flying to the funeral in a small ass plane. First of all, I got kind of excited because I'm like, oh, he's a pilot and a lawyer? That wifey lucked out. Like, what?
She really did, but I was like, dang, they're doing it like that.
Right? But then you already know that small ass plane spells trouble.
And this is exactly what I didn't like. This is the one scene I hated. Like, I had to watch it through my fingers.
Yeah, Yeah, but if you saw the trailer beforehand like I did, you knew that the plane was going to crash.
Well, see, now that I didn't see the trailer, but what was I doing? I think I was prepping to watch this, and I went ahead and pulled up, because when we do our show, I try to like make everything easy as possible for me to just read
right.
it. When I pulled it up, it was like a father survives a plane crash, and I was like, well, damn. Like, so when I seen the plane, I said, dang, this thing about to, bruh. It's 2020. You couldn't give us another accident. Like, it's too close to,
Yeah, that thing was
two prior deaths that I'm very, very bothered about. But
during this plane ride, I thought it was kind of cute that the song that he used to sing to her all the time was "I Put a Spell on You."
I wrote that too. I absolutely loved it. It gave me memories of middle school because we had a whole Nina Simone suite. Definitely love Nina Simone.
But at the same time, it was kind of like, Okay, you put a
They do
spell
a
on
lot of little innuendos to spells, like just in the
Right.
things that they talk casual conversation. I really like that use in this movie.
But the funny thing about it was at the end of the song, did you hear those ad libs?
From who?
At the song, whoever was singing, I put a spell on you.
Oh yeah.
That cracked me up. It's like, what? I have never heard this. So the family then lands at an airfield on the way to their final destination to fill up. And honestly, it looked like a straight up gas station versus an airfield.
But see, that's what I thought it was, and I just thought, like, you know, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when it comes to play.
But the funny thing was on the pump, it said diesel for airplanes or whatever it said, but basically letting you know that he could fill up his airplane there.
Right.
But that whole thing was confusing as hell. Cause I'm like, there's no airstrip. What is this?
Yeah.
While filling up, Marcus goes inside to use the bathroom and sees that the store owner is into hoodoo. There's roots and herbs everywhere. Anything hoodoo, you name it, it's on the shelves. He sparks up a conversation with the store owner about what he's working on, and it looks like he's sewing a mojo bag together.
Right. And
they start, to have a conversation about what he's working on. Ultimately, throughout their conversation, he rubs the store owner the wrong way with his bougie city ways. He just definitely ticks him off. But at the end of that conversation, after he asks where's the bathroom, he tells the store owner that he's headed up to the Appalachian Mountains to bury his father. And then the store owner offers him a mojo bag and he declined. Personally, with the way that man reacted to his news of him going up to the mountains, I would have probably taken it.
You should have taken it. I also like to say before Marquis goes into the station, we have this guy just randomly pull up. We get one of the funniest scenes in this movie. It's just like Ty talks to him and he's like, hey, yo, you got any service? And the dude just comes out of nowhere. He's like, hey, yo, slavery is over. Pump your own gas. And Ty just like lifts up his cell phone. I was like, oh my goodness, that was such a good joke.
And it was interesting. So I kind of wanted to break it up because the son outside talking to the guy outside of the plane was kind of happening at the same time.
Right.
The father being in the store, and it was going back and forth. And so, like Ashley said, the guy walked up and he was intrigued with the plane and started a conversation about cell service. But the part that got me really was when he was like, what's up with your finger? And he lifted up his hand and his finger was like twisted in an abnormal direction.
And I was like, I can relate, sir. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
Actually, your finger, it never looked like that.
You didn't see it? No, it didn't look like that. But I was just like, it definitely triggered me.
Like, I would say, I know your finger did not look like that.
It was just, the pinky was looking crazy. But yes, but it's all reasons. I like this movie. I like the way this movie foreshadows. It's not too blatant. Now, I will say, I'll point one thing out that was super, super blatant, but I guess they could have did it a different way, but I'll bring that up later because we aren't here. But I do want to go back to when Johnny talks about Marquis going into the gas station. This is your classic harbinger scene. If you guys don't know what a harbinger is, it's basically that warning before shit goes down. Like, in a lot of movies we watch, think of, Johnny might have not seen these movies, but yeah, Hills Have Eyes, Cabin in the Woods, I want to say House of Wax has one. There's always a scene where we pull up to a gas station or some type of store and there's an old rusty looking guy that's scary telling these people like not to do this, but it spooks them out and makes them just go because they think he's weird and it's wrong. But yes, we love the classic harbinger.
Yeah. So back to the boy. The boy who walked up, he was asking way too many questions.
He definitely makes you uncomfortable because I definitely thought he was going to steal that phone.
Well, I didn't think he was going to steal the phone, but
I thought he was about to straight run off with it. I was ready for it. I was like, yeah, he's going to be like, let me see your phone. He's going to take it and run off.
I was getting vibes that he didn't really know what the technology was.
Could have been.
By the way he looked. But then when he said that he asked where they were going. And the sun pointed towards the mountains and was like up there. Now the boy looked at him kind of crazy. He had some disdain about what was up there, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna head off now." But when he was walking away, he told him, "Next time, get a 5G phone. It's been years since we had 3G and 4G."
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say, that when you mentioned earlier that he might not have known about the technology, because I was like, oh, well, he gives a little something, so because he's
right. But I'm saying, but like at first glance, when he was like looking at the phone, when he's like, "Yeah, phone service," he kind of looked at it sideways. So I'm like, okay, has he never seen a phone before?
No, I was just thinking he was trying to steal. That was my thing.
After the kid who was asking all the questions finally walked away, the son called him a country ass nigga, and the mom instantly got mad. And at first
of all, you know that. I mean, I know he's grown, but he definitely say this on the regular. Like, he thought he was slick.
Right. And he even said, he was like, I mean, Dad says it, the music he listened to says it. But
he really tried to deflect, like, boy.
But the thing about it was, the mom wasn't even mad that he said nigga. She was mad that he called the dude a country ass nigga. And I thought that was really interesting. But it also ties in a lot of the themes to the movie.
Right. Before we move on, I do want to travel back just a little bit. The outhouse scene, when he goes out there and he's like, oh, dang, they really got an outhouse out here. Johnny might have not seen this movie. Oh, no, I know for a fact she hasn't seen this movie. But this movie, you know, you know. And the first thing I thought about was the outhouse scene in Sleepaway Camp 2. I'm going to leave it there because Johnny ain't seen it.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen it.
No, you know, especially when he opened it. I can't wait till we get into the Sleepaway Camp movies for Johnny, because I just want to know what the heck she's going to think. But if you know, you know.
Marquis comes back to the plane. They all get in the plane. And then right before they're about to take off, the police shows up.
Yeah. Did you like the scene? Did you like how it was shot?
I did.
I loved it. Go ahead, because I know you were thinking the same thing I'm thinking.
At first, I really thought it was going to be a white cop.
I did too. I'm like, and it's so beautifully shot. Like, just like in Get Out at the very, oh shit. Well, no, spoilers. Spoilers for Get Out. I know you've seen it. Spoilers for Get Out, guys. If you haven't seen it, maybe
I would
fast forward like 30 seconds. I mean, you know, it's people that probably haven't. I would hope you have, but fast forward about 30 seconds. So at the end of Get Out, it's like that same tension when the police car pulls up, because you don't know. And you know, we all know that there was another ending where it actually is a white man. But this was so beautifully shot. This is really, this movie, I'm going to compare it to another movie that we're watching later in the month. But I do like this. I do like the way that this movie was shot. But go ahead.
So this was actually just your standard police check-in, but when the police officer pulled up to the door, Marquis was already ready with all of his laws memorized. Which...
that lawyer stuff.
Right. He was well prepared. So at the end of their conversation...
He didn't have to slam that door like that.
Well, before that, the son decides to make fun of the officer by saying, "Y'all have a good day," before he says it, because that's what a lot of country folks, well, I'm not going to say country folks, but folks in the South say, "Y'all have a good day now." And so the son decides to make fun of him before he actually says it. And so when the officer says it, his sister and himself start to laugh. And the officer didn't really take to that very well.
Right.
And then ended up slamming the door after Marquis tried to, like, you know, diffuse the situation.
Yeah, he still didn't have to slam my door like that.
That was
very excessive. But the music cue that we get right after this scene as they fly off into the mountains is beautiful. Like, it reminded me, I'm going to probably bring up Get Out a lot, but it reminded me of Get Out, but I just definitely like when movies can set the mood and atmosphere effortlessly.
So when they take off again, I don't really 100% remember what the son says.
As they fly off into the mountains, it's the storm starting. And it's getting dark. We in a plane. You already know how that is. And Sam says that this is a creep show, which in this scene, we get a lot of references to other movies, if you know them. So we get creep show reference. And then she says, "I bet there are inbred hillbillies watching us right now," which is hills have eyes. And then Ty says, "Yeah, they're just stroking it. And I ain't talking banjos." And that's where Viora is like, all right.
She snaps on him. It's like,
yeah.
And Marquis is confused, like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
And the mom goes on to say that she is not happy with their entitled nature that their kids have. Then they start to talk about it, and that's when the storm starts to get worse. And you
First
already
of
know.
all, do you think they was listening?
Probably so.
The
'cause
kids.
I
I'm
was,
like, what my headphones gonna do? I can still hear you.
hello.
Because every time I'm in a grocery store, my headphones on. Everybody still want to talk to me, and I can hear y'all. I think at this point, I've like developed a sense to hear through my speakers, even though I can't hear without them. You know what I'm saying? Or my headphones, not speakers. Very random tangent, but I had to get that off my chest because it made me mad.
So as soon as they start to talk about it, the storm starts to get bad. And you already know that small ass plane plus a bad storm, recipe for disaster.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, it was. I would never want to be in a small plane like that in my life. Good God. So we actually cut to Marquis jumping awake in a random bed in the attic with what seems like a broke foot, freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we're introduced to Miss Eloise. Miss Eloise comes into the room like a good old Southern caretaker.
Okay, I was like, look at my sweetheart. I had hard eyes all over my notes.
In some aspects, she had more of like a slave dialect than Southern. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you could and couldn't understand what she said sometimes.
Oh, I understood every single word.
I did too, but I thought
it sounds just like my grandparents. Like, it's crazy. Like, I was just watching her, and it was hard for me to hate her at times. Like, I knew she was a villain, and I knew she was bad, but I just wanted to hug her.
And you know, it's like I understood her for the most part, mm-hmm. But it was so funny because a review I watched, it was this girl, she said, I wish I had watched it with subtitles because I was missing it.
and I was about to bring that up. I actually watched this without subtitles and was fine. And you know, auditory processing disorder is what it is. I can't, most of the time I have to watch things with a caption, or I won't even, it can be in English, obviously, and I just will not catch what they said. But this movie made me feel, I was nervous, but I was so comfortable with the dialect that I was just sitting there, like, it felt like I was back home. And it was just the people around me talking like they would normally talk.
The funny thing about it is that I cannot watch anything with captions because unless it's in a different language.
Is it because sometimes, now I will say captions be hating sometimes and telling me who be talking when I don't need to know who said it?
No, it's not
what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not that. It's because I will be focused on reading the words instead of actually looking at what's happening.
Oh, got you. I don't know how I do that, but I make it work. I love watching things with captions, but this movie, and I believe, I'm gonna stop bringing up Run. But anyway, I definitely watched this movie without the captions and was very surprised that I was able to.
Yeah, captions are distracting for me unless it's like, it's a show that I like watching on Netflix. It's about some privileged rich boarding school kids in Spain, and the whole show is in Spanish, but they have these captions and I'm able to watch it there. But
one thing I like about this scene with Eloise, I love when she was like, if you just rest now, we can talk ourselves a spell. Oh, I loved it. I just wanted to just.
So when he is introduced to Miss Eloise, he's asking a lot of questions about, you know, where his family is, where he is, and she doesn't bring up she doesn't answer any of his questions. She doesn't bring up the accident. She's going around in circles. She's just, you know, won't let him out the room to find his family.
Seemingly trying to get him to relax on the surface.
She just wants him to calm down. And since he wouldn't calm down, she then calls up her husband, Earl.
And I'm like, who's Earl?
And since Earl is too old to force Marquis back in the bed, because by this time he's like standing in the corner by the window.
And he was like, yeah, you're too big for me.
And then she calls up the mute muscle Lewis to put.
And I'm like, Lewis? Who's Lewis?
Apparently her son, because you know it's always in these like the little backwoods hillbilly movies, it's always the mom, the pa, and then the big bulky son.
Right, and I love how they paralleled that.
Lewis manhandles Marquis back in the bed. He's still not calm, so she blows powder into his face. Mm-hmm. And this is when you found out. Well, I don't know if this is 100% where you found out, but she has two powders. Yeah. Where one to put you up, one to put you down, one to spin you round and round. So in the next scene, I believe this next scene is when they're outside. It's Miss Eloise.
Well, before we go there, before she blows the powder in his face, they actually do tell him that he was in an accident and he was the only one they found.
Yes.
Because that's when he really starts to freak out after Lewis slammed him and she subdues him.
Yeah, Earl was like, "You don't remember you was in an accident?"
You don't remember that?
So in the next scene, Miss Eloise, Earl, and Lewis are outside. And Miss Eloise and Earl are sitting underneath the tree while Lewis is digging up graves. At this point, the way that it's being filmed and presented, you believe that the family is dead, since it looks as if 3 graves are being dug.
Right. Did you see, before you go there, did you see like when she was sitting in her sewing room and she was prepping her items?
Yes.
I mean, we know now what she was doing, but I thought that scene was so intricate because it just seemed like a daily Southern morning routine. You really don't know what she's doing until she brings the doll to Earl and he spits on it. I was like, because at first it threw me off until, as you said, when we see the rest of the scene, I was like, oh, okay, ritual, got it, let's go.
Yep. In the next scene, Miss Eloise comes back to the room and tells Marquis straight up that she's a root worker, conjure queen, hoodoo practitioner, the whole shebang. And this is where she introduced the boogity. The boogity is essentially a voodoo doll, for the lack of a better term. And in order for these types of dolls to work, you have to use personal effects of a person. And basically, personal effects can be like anything that they own or actual body fluids or hair, anything like that.
Yeah, because she tells you the more it resembles you, blood, nails, hair, semen, it becomes you.
Right. So she actually stole his semen. She took his license.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out, like, well, when did this happen, honey?
When he passed out.
She tried to, first of all, she tried to be slick and just swipe it off the nightstand. I'm like, sis.
Right. Stole his semen, took his license and his watch, cut pieces of fabric from his clothes, and probably a bunch of other things of his to make the doll as well. Yeah. But those were the only things that I really picked up on.
Yeah.
Miss Eloise explains that if you do good to the boogity would do good to you. In my mind, I was thinking that the boogity was going to be used for his healing at first, because you know, try to be nice at first, because voodoo and hoodoo dolls aren't just used for harm, as we see in most movies. They can be used for healing too. And then she puts the boogity in the window. She also puts a salt line across the window so that the devil will stay away. And I don't think the eyes moved at this point, but the boogity's eyes was moving throughout this movie.
Girl, no, they moved. Because they moved. There's definitely another movie that the boogity doll reminds me of in this trilogy of terror. So this movie, I thought it was an 80s movie, but it definitely came out in 75, right? And it's a cool little movie. I can't wait for us to watch it because I think you're going to like how they go about this one. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is because it's not a movie necessarily. It's a movie, but it's not a movie. But there's definitely a doll in there. But if you've never seen the movie, don't read on it. Just look at the picture.
I have seen the movie.
Okay. Is that the one you're talking about?
That doll was ridiculous. It scared the heck out of me.
Yes. Okay, so she knows what we're talking about, guys.
Yeah, outside of the teeth, it looks the same. Them teeth gotta go.
Yes.
Okay. So later on that evening, it's raining, and Marquis decides that he's going to try to find an escape. All the windows are closed except for one, the one that the boogity is in, and he sneaks out the window with his broke foot.
First of all, it's raining, and excuse my language, it's raining like the Redskins versus 49ers in 2019. Like, what do you think you're doing, honey? Absolutely, you're not Spider-Man.
Yeah, and you have a whole broke foot with bandages. Like, what? So he's sneaking across these roofs. How do you say, what's plural roof?
You just say roof.
Oh, well, he is jumping across the roof.
Like this Subway Surfer or Temple Run.
Right, to find an escape. It looks as though he's like trying to go to like the light tower on top of the one building, but there's a hole in the roof and he happens upon their quote unquote church service, which reminded me of like a good old time revival. back in the past.
Yes, that's exactly. And I knew it wasn't a revival, but that's exactly what I thought.
So, when he looks down, he sees that Miss Eloise is healing townspeople with boogies. And what's crazy is that they have this one lady, she can't talk, but they cut off a cat's tongue and stuck it in the mouth of that member's boogies.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she was able to talk.
Yeah.
And then the next dude comes up, he's blind.
This
like,
scene
no eyeballs at all.
Yes, this scene was so well done. The effects look so good right here.
Just
this could have gotten silly real quick.
It could have, but it didn't. Straight up skin for where eyes should be. And they take the cat's eyes and put it in the man's boogity, but then they take goat eyes and literally just set it on this man's face.
Dude, and I'm thinking, and I'm wondering, okay, so when you see this scene, Julius isn't facing us, so it's going to be a big reveal. And like I just said, this could have got real silly because I was trying to figure out, was it going to magically fuse into his head and turn into regular eyes?
I thought that too.
Or was it like, you don't know what's about to happen, because we didn't really see the mute lady's tongue, so we really don't know what's up in her mouth. You know what I'm saying? And when he turns around,
it's just sitting on his face,
and it's legit like the eyes of a goat. Like, if you've seen the movie The Witch, like, this is Black Phillip's cousin. Like, this is scary.
They just sitting on his
They're just literally sitting. And now this Julius has the face structure to where his cheekbones sit pretty high. They're sitting right atop of his cheekbones in the socket. Like, oh, okay.
Okay. So now that the goat's eyes are just sitting on this man's face, they're like, what can you see? What do you see? And he looks up and points to the ceiling and says, him. Basically pointing at Marquis. And Marquis jumped back really fast and decides to race back across the roof to get back in the bed. Mind you, at the same time he's racing across the roof to get back in the bed, Miss Eloise and Earl leave the barn. They're racing back across the yard to go and check to make sure
that race to the finish. Y'all know how this goes. It's that race to the finish.
Right. But Marquis is dumb. He makes a couple rookie mistakes. First of all, he's wet as hell.
I'm like, sir, and smartly enough, yes, you couldn't take your clothes off because it would be like, why are your clothes off? But
right. First, he's wet as hell. Then he didn't close the window.
Right.
And then on top of that, he broke the salt line that she put across the window. So, of course, she knows that your ass went out there. I don't really remember why I wrote this part that I'm about to say, but I know it has something to do with a conversation that they had before she left the room.
I got
you. Thinking that he's better than everyone else, but I had put down, the wife was right. The country will come back to bite you, because that's something that the wife had said in the beginning of the movie.
So after she figures out that he has broken the salt line, he has escaped, she starts to talk to him about how his entitled ways has really gotten out of control. Not out of control per se, but they're going to come back to bite him. Which, Viora has said this to him earlier before the plane crash happens. Now, Marquis, in a rebuttal back to Eloise, is telling her that none of this makes sense. This is some psychosomatic thing that you've done. Now, if you don't know what that is, people can believe something so much that they can make it physically or mentally true. So he's trying to basically deflect everything that she's about. So offended, that's when Miss Eloise goes and locks the window and leaves. So once Eloise leaves and, Marquis finally falls asleep, we get a little quick scene of the flashback. Now, remember at the beginning of the movie when we had the first flashback, Marquis wakes up and he kind of feels his shoulder. I don't know which one it is. I think it's his right shoulder. And we see that there's a wound there. We don't know what this wound is from. In this flashback, we see that his father actually stabbed him. And that's where the wound comes from.
Crazy.
And now we're at the next day when he wakes up and it's just food here. What is this, Johnny?
And also in the plane too, when the mom was complaining about this children being entitled, he did mention, so what do you want me to do with them? Go 9 rounds with them like my father did for me?
Oh yeah, he did say that.
So sad. So the next morning, Miss Eloise brings Marquis a bowl of what appears to be soup, and girl, he tore that bowl.
Tore it up, and I knew. No, when I looked at it, I knew that wasn't about the right.
Yeah. Even he sucked on the bone. He was sucking on the bone, and I already knew that bone was a human bone.
Yes.
She then goes to get him a second helping because he literally like inhaled that soup.
But and you got to think, like, when was the last time did he eat?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "You definitely worked up yourself a little appetite, didn't you?" He probably did, jumping from roof to roof like a Spider-Man.
I mean, going through a plane crash too, because had they fed him since then?
Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. Like, he probably was.
Wow, Miss Eloise was in the kitchen. She puts all of the bones. She takes, of course, one of the bones out the bowl, but she puts all of the bones in a handkerchief and brings it upstairs with a second bowl. This is when Marquis decides to apologize to her for being rude the night before.
Right.
He starts to talk to her about his dad a little bit, and then she starts to bring up the bones.
Right.
And tells him to throw the bones. Now,
but also Eloise spooks him a little bit right here, and I like this too. This is where she calls him out when he does start talking about his father, and he was like, yeah, he wasn't sparing the ride. But remember, like, they were back at home when he said that. So how does she even know that?
Well, because she also said she saw his scars.
Yeah, but to make you say the exact same thing he says when he was nowhere near you, yeah, that's something else.
So I definitely thought this was interesting because throwing the bones is definitely a practice for divination. But you don't really have to use real bones.
There's a movie they do that in, and I don't know if it's Princess and the Frog. So it's another movie that does that. Because for some reason, when she said it, I knew exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah, but you don't actually have to use bones. You can use like other small trinkets to represent different things. But she gives him the bones and she tries to tell him that there's magic deep in him that he's forgotten. This land is his land. His blood is of this land. So when she leaves the room, Marquis decides that he wants to give the bones a try. But instead of throwing them, he puts them together and he sees that it's a son's hand.
Right.
And you can tell that it's his son's hand because of that broke-ass finger.
Right, deformity.
It gave it all away. Then he throws up because he realized, has a flashback of him sucking on one of the bones. So he throws up, and then in the pile of throw up is a cut out part of his son's tattoo.
Right. Now, this is one of the foreshadowing things. I feel like that could have been done a little bit better. In the very beginning when they're at dinner.
Yeah.
At the very beginning when they're at dinner, we get a blatant shot of Ty's tattoo. Now, this could have been played off more as like, maybe because he's always on his phone, maybe somebody could have been talking to him in the hallway and this is just something you see, or maybe that's his dominant hand, so every time he uses it, you see the tattoo. But when they put the shot straight on his hand and they held it for that long, I knew that it had to have come back later. But before you go on, I wanted to point out when Eloise leaves him, before he, eats the rest of his food, he notices that there's a bell on the door that, how it goes, like it chimes when somebody comes in. And he takes the small ringer out of it and he stashes it. Like, we don't know what he's going to do with it. But he also asks Eloise.
Well, he doesn't do anything with it. It's just so that, the door doesn't make noise when he sneaks out.
Yeah. And then he also asks Eloise about hearing the phone pinging. Now, I thought I was tripping because I'm like, okay, I know my ringer's off. I'm hearing this phone. Why am I hearing a phone? So when they finally brought it up, but the sound is so perfectly done in this because it's very plain. It's not like blatant in your face. Like, you don't know if you're hearing the phone. You probably think it's somebody. Well, we're not in the theaters. But you're thinking, like, I'm thinking it's BJ's phone upstairs or something. I'm like, okay, why is this phone going off like that? Like, what's happening? Is he not answering it?
I live alone, so I knew it was one of somebody's phone on the TV. Okay.
Oh, and you know what? He does use the bell ring thing. I don't know how he did it, but he uses the top part, not the actual bell. Not the actual round part, but he uses it to unlock the door before he goes downstairs.
Oh, the metal piece.
Yeah.
So, back to him throwing up. He actually went and picked up the piece of skin, the tattooed skin, and freaked out. So this is when Miss Eloise comes back in the room to get the bowl, saying, "Oh, I can't leave this in here. It's going to stink up the room." And as she's leaving out the room, she's laughing and locks the door behind her.
Right.
So this is when Marquise hobbles over to the door, picks the lock, sneaks downstairs, and almost gets snitched on by this crow, which I thought was interesting too, because they say that whenever, it's like, there's definitely a correlation between Black crows and witches.
Right.
But we don't like to refer to root workers or hoodoo practitioners as witches. But I digress. So it's funny because the bird was making noise and he told the bird to shut the fuck up. And then he hid because Miss Eloise was coming out to investigate like who was in the hallway because she thought it was Earl. Right. And then she lifted up the cover to the bird cage and the bird told her to shut the fuck up.
And I'm like, first of all, that too fast.
That was funny, especially her reaction to it, because she already doesn't like, earlier in the movie when she's first introduced to Marquis, he cussed and swear and was like, I think he swore to God or said something or goddamn something. And she was like shocked and appalled, was like, we do not use such profane language about the Lord. But her reaction was hilarious. So as he's hiding behind the wall, Miss Eloise goes into the hallway that Marquis just came out of to see if Marquis is still in the room to investigate all that. And so this is when he decides to leave the house and hobble runs through the woods in the rain. So Marquis then, in the rain, after falling one time and hobbling and looking pitiful, he comes across the crashed plane in the woods.
And before that, remember, and I don't know why I didn't bring it up when it first happened, but remember when he falls, he hears his angel self, and that's what gets him to get back up. Because remember earlier in the movie, he's hearing something, and she was like, that's just your angel self. And he hears it again.
I thought that was he heard something. I thought it was like a phone or something. She's like, that's just your angel self.
No, okay. When I watch movies, I watch them with the sound all the way picking up so I don't hear shit. It's like I don't know how to say aura. I don't know how to describe the sound. It's like, it sound like, not harps. It just sound like a being. I don't know how to describe it, Johnny. I'm surprised you didn't hear this. It wasn't the phone. Like, yes, that was when that was happening, but no, it sounds like when you plug your ears and you hear the inside of your head, but it's sweet. That's what it sounded like. And when he fell and he got knocked out and he was looking into the stars, that sound came on again.
Yeah.
You got to go back and hear it because I was really entranced by this sound. But yeah.
So he comes across the crashed plane in the woods and he like hobbles over to it, opens the door, sees all the blood and the seeds, and then breaks down. And then he closes the door, keeps running, and sees a cabin, but then gets captured by Lewis and ends up back in the room. But before he moved on from the plane, there was a boogity on the tree.
I didn't notice that.
You didn't see that boogity on the tree?
I didn't. Because I think I was so distraught by them actually showing me the plane that I just did not pay attention to anything else.
It's like when he was leaving away from the plane, it was showing him like with his back to the plane. And so you see the tree and the back shot of the plane. Mm-hmm. And then there was the boogity on the tree right next to the plane.
Oh, well, I have to go back and see that one.
And I was like, is that Elle's boogity? Like, whose boogity is that just randomly on a tree? So now it's the next day, so it seems, and Marquis sees Miss Eloise, Earl, and Lewis leaving the grounds by horse and carriage.
Right.
This is when Marquis finally unwraps his foot to see what was wrong with it.
Child.
And there was a railroad spike lodged into the bottom of his heel. Mind you, I didn't know this until he pulled this out, but this spike was 6 inches long, just about.
6
inches.
And
he pulls that thing out.
Thick.
So I actually legit gagged.
Like, you think you like watching Dr. Pimple Popper until you see this.
Oh, I don't like watching pimple popping.
Oh, I wasn't talking about you.
Because that's disgusting.
Yes, you think you about that life until you see this. And they made sure. Now, this movie, I have to say, this movie does not have a lot of gore. Now, it's a lot of things that could be gory, but this is probably the goriest part of the movie.
I literally was sitting on the couch and I was, it was bad. There was pus. normally you don't really see pus coming out of people's stuff.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
blood.
Well, see, you said you don't watch Dr. Pimple Popper, but yeah, we do.
No, I mean like horror movies. You just normally see like blood gushing, but because I'm guessing he could have been infected or some shit,
Right.
it was blood, and then at the very end of the trail of blood was freaking pus.
So yeah, you saying that makes me want to show you so many movies, because there are some movies that we're gonna watch that, girl, we're gonna have to get you a bucket, because they do very well on actually. I won't spoil it for you. All right.
My skin was crawling. I literally shut my eyes. That's the first time I gagged at a horror movie in a long time.
Just wait, my friend.
So once the railroad spike was out, he was able to move at a rather fast pace, which was a little confusing. But anyways, he goes outside, and the first thing
I guess when you think about it, like, yeah, that spot isn't filled, and I don't know if he did feel it. They don't bother to show us that. We didn't need to see it. But I guess when he unwraps his foot, you see that the nail head is like protruding out. So when you think about it, every time he stepped, like lodging more into it. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. He gets outside. Get out the house.
Okay. So he goes outside and digs up. The first thing he does when he goes outside is he runs to those graves that he saw. And
what was in that first one?
I know it was a goat, a pig.
All I saw was pig and chicken.
Well, then one was a goat.
Okay.
So yeah, he digs up the three graves, and you see that it's buried animals from sacrifices and not his family. So at this point, I'm like, where the hell is his family? So then he goes back across the lawn. Well, not really lawn, the dirt. And he finds her altar room. I want to say conjure room, really, because there was only one altar. And he sees 3 coffins. So now he's opening the coffins, and in my head, I'm like, okay, he probably thinks that his family needs 3 coffins.
Right.
But in one of the coffins, there was a dead white sheriff with his penis cut off.
Yeah, so
I was
like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this movie did very good with the gore, or not even with the gore, but the special effects in this movie.
And then the funny thing about it was, as he continues throughout that room, you see that the penis was put on a boogity.
Yeah. Like, somebody wanted a wee-wee?
Who needed a new penis? And a small one at that.
Or maybe they had like
erectile
prostate. Yeah, or prostate issues.
Oh no. But there's also herbs and oils in this room, you name it. Just like in the gas station scene, anything hoodoo, that's in this room. So he comes across a picture of Miss Eloise Earl and Lewis from 1860.
Right.
Now, I'm like, okay.
His reaction was so spot on. I like when actors can make things feel super genuine, because you're definitely gonna say what the fuck when you see something like that, but it's the way he said it. Like, it's perfect. I love it.
There's no way in hell they should be alive right now. But based off of that spell book that he then sees about the blood moon ritual, it makes sense as to how they're alive.
Right.
Because the ritual that they've been talking about, because they were telling him that he cannot leave and see his family until after the blood moon ritual. They need to keep him until this daggone blood moon ritual.
Right.
So in the book, the blood moon ritual is actually a transfer of life spell.
Right.
And the spell needed the seed of his seed, aka his semen, a magical stew of body parts, which happened to be his son's hand, blood, and possibly some other things, which is tied together with flashbacks of other scenes of the movie.
Mm-hmm. He
then finds the powders that Miss Eloise used on him, the one to put you up, one to put you down.
Because he hears the harbinger in his head telling him to protect himself. That's the way he gets the idea.
Right. He leaves out the room, and you see him start to grab pieces to create a boogity of someone. At this point, it wasn't clear who the boogity was for, but he hides it outside behind the step under the porch. He then also finds their phones after hearing one of them ding, and then he takes the one that is still on, by the grace of God, which happened to be his son's, back to his room.
Right.
And it was the only one that worked, and it was on 1%.
Right. Now I got problems, but go ahead. Go ahead. I got major issues.
Oh, I do too. And I
need to know.
And you're probably going to say what I was going to say, because I took a screenshot of it.
Okay, go ahead.
At this point, the stagecoach comes back to the house, and he has to hurry up and get back upstairs and put the railroad spike back in his foot.
Bruh. Ooh!
My God.
Woo!
And we know that he did it to trick Miss Eloise and Earl and Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
But, my God. So he actually made another rookie mistake of leaving the door open.
Yeah.
So when they pulled up, Miss Eloise and Earl knew his ass was probably tracing around the property. So they came upstairs ready for Lewis to chop off that foot with that axe.
It's funny because I couldn't understand the very first part of what she said. And she was like, we about to find out, ain't we? Where's that axe?
Oh my gosh. And then it was so funny because then Earl and Miss Eloise were saying something to each other, and then she was like, "Oh, barren ass."
Yeah. Because it's the part you mentioned earlier when she sees that the door is ajar, and she was like, "Well, did you do it?" And he was like, "No, I would have remembered." And she's like, "You can't remember nothing, yo old barren ass."
But no, back to that spike. It like pissed me off because he did all that work to take that shit out, and now he has to stick it.
Would have I probably just would have had them. I don't know because it could have looked different too. I would have said. I was about to say. Okay, pause. I was about to say I don't know because I probably just would have acted like I was in the process of taking it out when they pulled up, but that can look
even worse.
Different. Yeah.
So they come up to the room and they asking him, okay, did you leave the room? She's like, no, Miss Eloise, no, I didn't leave. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, let me check your bandage. And they check the bandage and they see that the railroad spike is actually still in there. Right. So they're like, all right, well, I guess you really weren't running around here. Mind you, the whole time Lewis is just standing in the doorway.
Lewis is basically a Leatherface, but not that violent.
Miss Eloise, Earl, and Lewis finally leave the room. Marquis takes his son's phone to call 911 after failing to put in a passcode.
Right. So
when he calls 911, the cop that answered just so happens to be the same cop that rolled up on them at the airfield.
That's suspicious.
Right.
That's weird.
But again, that's your classic horror movie scene right there. It's always the cop that you met already. So he tells the cop that his wife and kids are missing. The cop said he found them, but the son is gone. They've been looking for him all week, and that he was close by and going to come to the house, which is also suspicious because why are you close by? But this is what pissed me off about this scene.
Okay.
If you look at him on the phone,
mm-hmm.
someone was actually calling him while he was on the phone.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, when you're trying to do something desperately and your phone is on that last little inch, and it's always then that somebody want to try to call you, and that's when the phone dies. And I'm wondering, I wonder, is that a deleted scene where that was the case, but they took it out, but that one part is still there? You know what I'm saying? How we find out things later. We probably won't find out until a DVD or something comes out. But this was just in my head. My other issue was...
I spot this all the time because I've seen movies where they're supposed to be on the phone, but it's really showing the lock screen.
Yeah.
And they act like they're on the phone when they're not.
But my phone does that.
My phone don't do that.
If I'm on the phone and I click the button, it'll be on the lock screen. But I do that so I don't hit any buttons. I rarely put my phone on my face. But when
my phone don't do that. My phone shows the phone being on the phone screen. I don't, and that's like a continuity thing that bothers me in movies. If you're on the phone and you're holding the phone up to your ear, I want to see that you're actually on the phone. Not that it looks like somebody's calling you. Not like that it looks like, oh, I need to unlock my phone, because it makes me feel like you're just holding the phone like it's a prop, like you're not really on the phone. After he gets off the phone with the cop, he decides to pull that damn steak out of his foot. I'm sorry, it was pissing me off. And I know at this point that thing is infected from running through the woods, being barefoot, exposure to all types of mess. Oh my gosh.
I know he had to get that cut off.
Okay, so when the cop pulls up, Miss Eloise comes straight upstairs and finally uses the boogity for evil. She snatched the doll out the window and slams her head on it to force Marquis away from the wall and down in the bed. Because at this point, he was standing by the wall.
Right.
So she slams her hand down to force Marquis down on the bed. She rips the tongue out of the boogety's mouth, causing him not to speak no more, and then ties his arms together with twine. And of course, whatever she does to the boogety, it affects Marquis in the same manner. So then she So she stuck the boogity back in the window and then left the room. Tied up and unable to speak, let alone scream, Marquis manages to make his way to the window and tries to scream. Of course, nothing comes out.
I'm like, sir, if you don't make some noise.
His tongue was gone.
No, I'm talking about like you can bang. I mean, not bang. You can knock something over. Like I would have been throwing myself
against the window.
Yeah, like.
So, he tries to answer the phone because he sees that the cop outside is calling him on the phone. So he tries to answer the phone, but when he answers, of course, he couldn't utter a sound. So he somehow grabs the boogity out the window while he's still, tied up invisibly. And then he bends down and grabs the tongue off the floor and then struggles to open the door and leave the room. But that kind of pissed me off because, first of all, you should have just unwrapped it and stuck the tongue back in the mouth before you left. But I'm guessing he still didn't believe at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So the cop leaves.
As if that wasn't enough.
Right. The cop leaves. Marquis gets downstairs and is seen by Miss Eloise and Earl. And the first thing she does is scream for Lewis. And then you see Earl running to go get Lewis.
I like the way that this scene was shot. Like it's a lot of scenes in this movie. And I'm telling you guys, even though I'm singing his praises right now, I do have some negatives, but not right now. This movie could have gotten really silly in a lot of places, but this scene was one of them. But this one, the tension is perfectly perfect.
So he leaves, but then it cuts to the cop driving through the woods under the blood moon. And like every horror movie that has woods, Marquis comes out the woods struggling and jumps in front of the car.
Mm-hmm.
He struggles to get in the car, still can't talk, and now he decides to unwrap the boogity doll and put the tongue back in his mouth so he can talk.
Yeah, I like the police's banter. He's like, "What's wrong with you? You ain't gonna say nothing, bro?" He ain't say bro, but you know what I mean.
So after he tells him to just drive, he ends up telling the cop that Miss Eloise and fam are batshit crazy. They're a bunch of backwoods conjuring. They're a bunch of backwoods conjuring root workers. They have a whole cult of them. All while the cop is unknowingly driving Marquis back to the farm.
Yeah, and I knew it. Like when he first called him and he picked up, I already knew, as you said, horror movie trope.
Yeah,
I knew he was in on it.
This whole scene is a classic horror movie scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You think you escape, but you don't. And as he pulls back up to the house, everyone is standing outside looking all creepy. Marquis then gets dragged out of the car and into the barn for the blood moon ritual where he sees that his family is still alive when they're brought in. He struggles to free himself while screaming for his family who are in a trance and can't hear him. Miss Eloise then blows some more of the powder into his face and it seems like Marquis knocks out, but they put him on the table and everything. And while he's on the table, it's revealed that the ultimate plan is to cut out Marquis' heart and give it to her husband, Earl, once he's, laid on the table.
Right.
As soon as she goes to stab him in the chest, of course, after giving a little monologue, very short monologue, you think you're...
As they do. They always freaking do.
The only thing better about you is this here heart, but you're not even going to have for long. So, as soon as she goes to stab him in the chest, he opens his eyes, grabs her heart, stopping her, and then simultaneously stabs Earl in the heart. And then it's revealed in a flashback, once he gets off the table, it's revealed in a flashback that when he was down in the conjure room, he switched the powders that she blows on him, like the one to put you up and one to put you down.
So he was up.
Right. Like he was faking like he was knocked out.
Right.
So once everyone flees the barn, he takes the powder to wake them up and blows it in his family's faces. He also sees that his son's hand is gone, confirming that he ate meat.
Yeah.
Now, the cop is back driving through the woods. And, before this, he, does a little slight reuniting scene with his family, and then he tells them to go hide or whatever. So now it cuts to the cop driving back through the woods, and a dead body is thrown onto his windshield. Again, another classic horror movie scenario.
I was very upset. I'm like, why are you blind? First of all, why are you blindly shooting into the woods? Now you have no ammo, which I mean, yes, good for our protagonist, but come on, dude.
But Yeah, so what Ashley is talking about is once the body gets thrown out the window, he gets out the car and he's scared and he starts shooting out into the abyss until he's out of bullets.
Yeah.
And then Marquis comes behind him and starts slashing this nigga up like he's playing fence. And the first thing I thought was, all right, Ghost, because that just right there reminded me of Power.
Mm-hmm.
So Marquis then runs back to the house all bloody to get the boogity that he hid underneath the porch.
Right.
He then proceeds to put it in a bucket and fill that bucket with water.
Yes.
So now you have all the cult members. Of course, by this time he puts on a shirt and then goes back into the barn. Mm-hmm. But now you have all the cult members coming to attack him with torches, which again, another horror movie. You got your whole cult of people running behind you with torches and pitchforks, but there's no pitchforks. So all while they're coming to attack, Miss Eloise is screaming that Marquis killed her husband. Lewis busts into the barn. This man is strong as hell. He busts into the barn. A fight ensues, more like a beatdown really, until Lewis starts barfing up water due to his drowned boogity. Now, Lewis is dead too. And this is when Miss Eloise walks over to the water that he drowned the boogity in and takes the boogity out the water and starts screaming.
Yeah.
And at this point I was happy because I'm like, that's right, Marquis. Use this hoodoo to free yourself and your family.
Exactly. I wanted to bring that up later, but yes.
So after slightly recuperating from his struggle with Lewis, Marquis gets up to go get the box of boogities he stole from the conjure room. Miss Eloise then comes in the back door of the barn, mad as hell, but impressed that he's clever and said that's why she hides her boogity where no one can go and mess with it. She then slowly goes to attack him, but he blows the put you down powder in her face. Now she's standing there all stuck. And then he tells her, okay, this is why I made my own boogity of you. So then he takes a hammer and hits the boogity doll like it's a baseball. And Miss Eloise goes flying in slow motion. And this was a really great shot.
Yeah.
So her body then crashes into a beam. It breaks, causing an oil lamp to fall and break. And then that oil lamp sets the hay on fire. She tries to make him feel bad when she's all on the ground, bloody and seemingly out of commission.
Right.
Telling him, you're just going to let an old lady burn. Then he tells her, Miss Eloise, you taught me a lot, but so did my pops. And then he turns around to leave the barn. Now, as Eloise gets up, she tries to comfort him to stab him, but Marquis puts a barrier of salt across the threshold, essentially locking Eloise in the barn to burn alive. Basically, if it'll keep the devil out, it will sure as hell keep the devil in. Right. Now, Miss Eloise is left to burn alive in the barn while screaming bloody murder. Spoiler alert, kids. If you find yourself in a hoodoo, ghost, spirit situation, barriers of salt do not work in real life. Do not see it. I do not want you guys to hurt yourselves. Salt does not work. It doesn't. Okay, now let me continue. As Marquis is walking away, this whole entire time, the cult group was just standing there staring with their torches in hand. Which was weird. Like, you just gonna stand outside.
I was like, y'all just gonna let him do this? Right. But I was wondering, but that can't be, because obviously everybody has free will. So it's not like we have to be like The Sims and be actively playing. No. Well, no, it is kind of like The Sims. You have to actually be using a boogity for it to have effect on somebody. So I was really trying to figure out, why were they just standing there? I mean, at the point where the fire started, yes, I'm not going to do anything. But then go ahead, because we find out why they don't attack him.
As Marquis is walking away, he tells the cult to get back, or else he was going to use their boogities against them. And then they backed up. It was like, let her.
Because you see, he has all of their boogities on his shoulder in a box.
Right. So as he's walking to his family, the barn blows up. There's their cute little family hug. Then they hop in the Jeep and create. I'm just kidding. It wasn't a Jeep. But
car, yeah.
They drive away in the classic horror movie fashion, where everyone in the car is quiet, traumatized, dirty, and covered in blood, staring out the window as the music plays. So it then cuts to this is really the end of the movie now. So as the movie is ending, you see the last boogity on Eloise's altar, and then you hear Eloise in the background saying, "I put you up, I put you down. I spin you sideways and I spin you around." And then she starts laughing creepily. And then the eyes of the boogity pop open, and then cue the credits.
That ending upset me so much. I just hate now. Okay, so now that we at this part of the movie, I can say what I want to now. Two things, as I said, I didn't like about the movie. One, obviously, was the plane crash. If you know me, you obviously know why I didn't like that part. And the second part was definitely the ending. Oh, actually, I have three things. It was the ending. I don't like when movies try to lighten the mood at the end. I would have been perfectly fine knowing that Eloise was dead and she's not coming back. Yes, she's a root worker. She probably got friends on the other side, all that, etc. But I would have been fine knowing that she was defeated. Don't try to lighten up the mood for me. Also, my next gripe with the movie, I feel like the third act was very, very rushed. I feel like this movie needed probably 10 more minutes just to flesh a few scenes out. I feel like it really just, yes, he learned from her and was able to use those things against her to win. But at the same time, it's something about that third part that's very rushed for me. I would have liked for it to be fleshed out just a little bit more. I do like that the son's hand was actually gone. I didn't know how I felt knowing that the family survived. I was kind of happy because that was dark. But at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't know. I think I wanted more from the actual ritual scene. I think the end scene was way too easy for our protagonist, if that makes sense.
Well, they did say that it was in him. He knew. In the flashback too, his father said, you got to believe it for it to work.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what.
Which isn't always true, folks. You don't have to believe it for it to work. Just saying.
I'm not sure what more I would have wanted, but it's something about that whole third act. Because the movie does really well all the way up into the third act. And that's where it kind of loses me. What about you?
I liked it. I really liked it. And I have my reasons for liking it. Yeah, that's the only thing that I hated about the movie was the pus coming out that man's foot. That was disgusting. Very disgusting. You ready to go to the souvenir shop?
Okay, girl, we can go.
It seems you survived. Well, before you go, join us in the souvenir shop.
Again, this movie just came out in October. So the only thing that really is out is the cover art. And it is Omari Hardwick peeking behind the door, kind of like how he does in the movie. And what's interesting is that the sigil that's on that door is a sigil that was on one of the coffins in the Conjure Room. And of course, at the top, it has, Omari Hardwick and Loretta Devine, which were the two main stars, basically, of the movie. Then it has the title of the movie at the bottom, and then it says Evil Has Its Roots, which is so clever to me.
I like that one. Another cover art one that I like is actually Omari's hand. He's like covered in boogities. And then it just, pardon me?
I said I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I'm all about the poster art. But yes, it's Omari's hand and he's covered in boogities. It has spell at the bottom. And then what did you say that the symbol was?
I called it a sigil.
Yes, the sigil is the same sigil that's on the cover you're talking about and that was on the coffin. And it just has spell. It doesn't have a tagline yet, but this seems like this would be the pre-promotional flyer. Like you don't know exactly what's going to be going on yet, but it's just enough to make you be like, it's probably the ones that you would see like in the theaters as you walk out or walk into a movie.
So,
Wait, I got one more because I really like this one. One more. Another cover art that I like is you just get one boogity. And this one doesn't look like Omari's boogity. This one has like a khaki button up with like, you can't really see the inside of his outfit, but he definitely has a wrap around his waist and it has bones hanging down from it, but it's not Ty's finger bones though. And he's in a coffin and it just says spell, but spell is like scratched into the coffin with the sigil.
Even though it mainly went straight to video, some theaters did carry this movie. And so the box office, revenue? The box office revenue for this movie ended up being $500,104. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a rating of 47%. There was a lot of harsh critics for this movie.
Yeah.
IMDb gave it a 5.4 out of 10, and then Metacritic gave it a 38%.
Yeah.
So actually, I know you already talked about what you thought of the movie, but what is your rating for this movie?
So for Spell, as I said, I liked it. It definitely had scenes I didn't like. It also had, the third act is where it kind of fell for me because it was doing so well with the tension and everything like that. But I kind of feel like it did drop a bit for me at the end. So I have to say, I want to give Spell, especially because normally I do like these kind of movies, so I can't say that. But I do tend to stray away from movies that a lot of people hype up in the beginning, especially people that I know really aren't well versed in horror. I'll say it like that. Like, your Facebook friends and things like that. A 78. That's as high as I can go.
Okay. So I gave the movie an 80. I really liked it. I had to text my boyfriend after the fact because he was raving about it before I watched it. And I'm like, well, don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen it yet. I'll see it at some point, blah, 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 blah. But when I finally watched it last night, I texted him and I was like, I finally watched it. I loved it. And he's like, oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord.
He be coming for me all the time.
Well, survivors, that's it for this ride. We hope you enjoyed this review of 2020 Spell, and we hope you come back to celebrate Bye Bye 2020 with us as we review 2020's Run. Now, let me say, I've seen this movie recently, and I really like it. This one was not on my radar next year. So if you want to catch us next week, we're going to be up in the park. You can meet us. We can link up, and we'll be talking about Run. All right, Janae, you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet.
Girl, it's good.
I know. I was waiting to watch it for, when we reviewed it. So
yeah, it is good. I was like, oh, wow. Like,
okay, so I don't know if we talked about this before, but how we pick the movies for the month, we have a theme, and then I pick 5 movies, Ashley picks 5 movies, and then we kind of like take the best of both.
What she's saying here is true, but what I end up doing is if I feel a movie fits a different category, I'll take it out. And if I feel like it can fit somewhere else better, I'll put it there. But if it fits the current theme, like for this theme, as Janae said, by 2020, so it's all 2020 movies. But if there was a movie in particular that we had on our list that I'm like, this might do better like when we talk about hotels, or this might do better when we talk about internet horror. I'm just making up stuff, but yes, that's what happens.
So when it came time to like list the movies that for 2020, mind you, I hadn't seen any horror movies this year that came out this year, except for Antebellum. And we weren't covering that. So I literally had to like find the movies that came out and just looking at the synopsis and cover art for some of these besides Spell, because I knew I wanted to watch Spell. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. But Run was one of the ones that a lot of people were raving about. Yeah. And I was just like, well, let me just put this on here because it seems to be one of the top movies that was released this year. And
so,
now that Ashley says she liked it, I'm actually interested to see, because I wasn't too sold on it. Because I saw the preview. I did see part of the trailer, but not really. So I wasn't too sold on it.
I hope you enjoy it. I really, really liked it. I'll say that, as Janae said before, while curating the list for January, what I tend to do is, depending on the subject, I go to my handy dandy friend YouTube and go in my horror community and just see what people are saying about certain things. So when it came to this one, it was obviously perfect because, a lot of people are releasing their top movies of 2020, their worst movies of 2020. And sometimes it's not specifically 2020 movies, but sometimes it is. And I follow this one young lady. Her name is Spooky Astronaut. I adore her a lot. If you don't follow her, that's her name on all social media mediums, so you can follow her. And when she did her 2020 list, all of the movies that we picked for this month were on there. So that's kind of what swayed my decision for this list. So yeah, like I said, people, that's the end of this ride. Join us next week when we watch Run. Make sure you watch it before you come up in the park. Don't be trying to get no free rides and you ain't watched the movie, okay? All right, survivors. Until next time, see ya!
Bye. Don't use salt.
Oh my gosh.